Hey there, and welcome to Write for Joy, the podcast. I'm Renee, and I'm here to help you make creative writing a joyful process so you can go from dreaming about writing to becoming a real writer. It's time for you to start and finish the stories tugging at your heart without it feeling like a slog. Let's dive in. Hey there, writers. So, fall is one of my all-time favorite seasons. So, I really love summer and spring as well. Winter, I have some stuff with around winter, although it's certainly an important season. However, I absolutely love fall. So, I hope you are also enjoying this cozy season. For me, it brings up a lot of creative energy for me. It's very reflective. It's very refreshing for me, fall. I think because it's very much a season of releasing, like the leaves are falling. We are moving into a new year. It's really a season for a lot of release. And then also at the same time, for me, it's a very gestative, creative season as well. I often get really beautiful, energized, creative ideas during the fall. And that's just me. I've heard a lot of folks have different experiences and different types of energies that come to them in the fall. But just wanted to share that with you as we are smack dab in the middle of fall here in the US. It is Thanksgiving week, so I'm recording and sharing this on the Sunday before US Thanksgiving, and I'm so excited. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays because of the food and also family, getting time to spend time with my family and my niece and nephew. It's really a blessed time for me. So I hope you are also having a good season as well. I want to talk about embracing gratitude to joyify your creative writing. So let's dig into this a bit. So creative writing is a very emotion-driven pursuit. In my opinion, all of the arts are very emotion-driven. Of course, there's strategy involved, there's planning, there's a lot of the logical and practical side of the brain that is needed for the arts. But let's be honest, the real juice and creativity comes from our emotions, right? And one thing that often gets in the way of writers is the fact that when they plan to sit down to write, or they want to sit down to write and be a consistent writer, they'll often tell me that when they go to do that, they're not in the quote unquote mood to write. And I've definitely been there. This is not an unusual thing for any people. We're not always in the mood to be creative. However, this often prevents us from being consistent because we're constantly waiting to be in a good or inspired or motivated mood to write. And when we're not, we'll typically, a lot of the writers that I work with will typically procrastinate or get down on themselves because they're not in the mood to write. And so then it compounds because they even feel worse because, again, I didn't stick to my commitment of writing, and now I feel even worse because I didn't stick to that. So it's like piling on and it compounds. So what can we do about this? Is there a way that we can subtly shift that, air quotes, not in the mood to write, so that when the time to write actually does come around, like if you're planning your time to write and it comes around and you're not in the mood, is there a way to shift that energy so that it feels better to get your butt in the chair, open up a fresh page in your journal or a fresh Google Doc or whatever you're working on and actually sit down to write? I personally have found that gratitude is a fantastic tool for shifting that energy. And I wanted to share this topic and these tools, obviously, because we're so close to US Thanksgiving, and often the theme of that is gratitude. However, this is a huge disclaimer around the topic of gratitude. Gratitude. Oh, I almost said gratitude, and that's actually an amazing term. Anyway, big disclaimer around gratitude. So when I talk about gratitude, I am not talking about bypassing yucky feelings, burnout, or negative thoughts and emotions. So if you've been taught to use gratitude as a weapon against yourself, against your negative emotions or negative thoughts, or challenging circumstances, we're not going to be doing that here. Okay, we're not going to try to pretend that if you are in a negative circumstance, let's say, for example, let's just use a kind of a not a terrible disaster example, but something that can really shatter you. Let's say you've just broken up with your partner and your heart is in pieces on the floor, right? That's a challenging circumstance that's going to come with a lot of negative emotions and thoughts. We are not here to bypass those things with gratitude. So whatever challenging circumstances are, even if they're not so challenging, like let's say that your job requires a lot of your time, like you work a 40 to 60 hour a week job, maybe even more, and you really also want to write, that's a challenging circumstance that you're going to have negative emotions and thoughts about because it's a challenging circumstance. We're not going to pretend that those things don't exist, and we're not going to use gratitude to wallpaper over those things. And so that's why I use a 2-part process with gratitude. So we'll get into that in a bit, but I did want to share that very important disclaimer about gratitude. So a few Sundays ago, I hosted a live event for writers called Conversations and Coaching on Writer's Block. And we spent an incredible hour and a half digging into barriers that prevent creative writers from getting their butts in the chair and writing their soul story and getting it down on paper, right? Oh, the conversations were so juicy. It was so wonderful to connect with these writers. And I'm just so grateful for that time that I got to spend with y'all. So thank you to all the beautiful writers who came onto that call and showed up for themselves and showed up for others. It truly just lit me up for a good 2 weeks. I was on such a community inspiration high, and I know I definitely wasn't the only one. So thank you to all of those writers who showed up. And so during the call, I led the group of writers through an exercise to channel the emotion of inspiration. So I asked the writers to imagine and then describe what the emotion of inspiration feels like in the body. So one answer that really stood out to me and got me excited was from a writer named Christina. So shout out to Christina for this great share. So Christina said that emotion or inspiration feels like being a little kid and walking into Disneyland or Disney World for the first time. And so imagine, if you're a Disney person, if not, think of something else that's really exciting for you. So imagine you're this kid, this trip has been planned for weeks, maybe even a year, and you're in the car, then you get out of the car, you're skipping through the parking lot with your friends or siblings. Maybe you start to run and your parents are like, slow down, wait for us. And you're like, oh, I'm so excited. And you're in the line to get in. And then finally you walk through the gates and there it is, the castle. It's Cinderella's castle if you're in Disney World. It's Sleeping Beauty's castle if you're in Disneyland. And there's this glorious sensation of excitement and hope that washes through your body. And I even think about, I grew up in New Jersey, and I was about 45 minutes away from Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. And I remember being around 16 years old when I was actually allowed to go to Great Adventure with my friends. And without an adult, which I was either 16 or 17 when I was allowed to do that. I can't really exactly remember, but it might have been 17. And I remember when we were allowed to go without an adult, and I would go with a group of friends, and this walking through the gates and seeing all the roller coasters. I was really into roller coasters at the time, not so much anymore. And I was seeing all the roller coasters and just thinking oh my gosh, I cannot wait to feel all this rush and excitement and to do it with my friends. And we're going to get to laugh and have fun and eat all kinds of yummy goodies in the park. And it was the most freeing, exciting feeling of all time. And the other thing I'll say is that we often did that in the fall. Fall was the best time to go to Great Adventure because all the tourists weren't usually there. It was a lot more locals, and they also had a Fright Fest festival. They would during the Halloween season, it was awesome. They would dress up all the the workers there and like it was a whole theme. Anyway, so like that feeling in your body, like that's the thing. It's very similar to that flush, that rush of good vibes that we get when we have an idea for a story or a character that we're really excited about, or we're really tapped into the flow when we're writing. We're captivated, we're engrossed, we're fully immersed in the miracle of creativity. And when we're in that space, that energy, there's not a lot of room for self-doubt. There's not a lot of room for imposter syndrome or the inner critic. It's really this exciting, expansive space that is really ideal for creativity, right? And if you've never felt that feeling around writing, I encourage you, like, if you've never felt that feeling either through like a Disneyland thing, like think about what that feeling felt like for you. Like maybe it was waking up on Christmas morning if you celebrated Christmas growing up, or maybe it was like going on vacation with your friends or the book fair at school. I definitely felt that way about the book fair at school. So think of a thing in your life that did give you that feeling. And it's totally okay if you haven't felt that feeling around writing. We're going to shift into that feeling today through these exercises, or at least closer to that feeling. Don't get down on yourself if you're like, oh, but I can't get into that feeling 100%. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to inch a little bit closer. Okay. All right. So as we know, we're not always in this really excited, electrified energy when we've planned to sit down to write. If we've planned to sit down to write at all, maybe you've never even scheduled your writing time before. And if you haven't, I encourage you to do so. Pick out a time when you're going to plan your next writing session. And so sometimes we wait. Sometimes I know a lot of you, and I've done this myself, we wait until this feeling comes to find us, where we wait until we're excited, inspired, energized to write. But then sometimes that feeling will only happen when we're in the shower, or we're on a long walk, or we're in the car, or we're at dinner with friends or watching a movie. And suddenly we get this like lightning bolt of inspiration, but we're not set up to sit down and capitalize on that lightning strike. You can't just like leave dinner and go sit down to write. You can, but that's not really a joyful way to live your writing life, right? We want to have time with our friends. We want to have like an energizing, rejuvenating shower that we don't have to jump out of and go right? So I really do believe in planning when you're going to sit down to write instead of trying to like capitalize on that lightning bolt. The lightning bolts are great, have the markers that you can write in the shower, or a notebook outside of your shower, or like bring a notebook with you, but also plan a consistent time to sit down and show up to write, because that's just as important. So, but of course, when your writing time comes around, you may not always be in that Disney castle energy. In fact, if you're just getting used to starting a consistent writing routine and planning to sit down to write, you might often show up to your writing time feeling drained, feeling scared, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like a total fraud, or feeling, the inner critic may rush in and be like, oh my gosh, you have no good ideas. Your writing sounds like a 5-year-old, like just don't even try. And so you're going to show up in that vibe a lot of the time. Like this is very normal. This is what happens. And so if you plan your writing and then we're showing up in this kind of like tense, scary, negative energy, how can we shift that energy? Again, without bypassing it, but how can we shift it? And I want to introduce you to a 2-part gratitude process that you can use when you want to sit down to write, but you're just not feeling it. You're just not in the vibe. You're not in the energy. So it's a 2-part process. I'm really excited to dig into it with you today. So let's dive in. All right. Part 1 is called conscious complaining. So earlier I mentioned how gratitude has often been used as a weapon to emotionally bypass negative thoughts, feelings, and circumstances. So listen, negativity is not a bad thing, even though the name kind of implies that it is, but it really is not. Negativity is there for a reason, and it's trying to tell you something, right? Negativity causes problems in our lives when it festers, When negativity is not acknowledged or released, that's when it sits in your system and wreaks all kind of havoc. Havoc. I can't say that word. It wreaks havoc when you don't acknowledge it and you don't release it, right? Or you don't process it, as my therapist would like to say. And shout out to my therapist who used this great analogy that processing negative emotions, and again, I'm not a therapist, but processing trauma is a lot like doing the laundry, where you've got this big pile of stinky, smelly laundry and it's just overwhelming. And you're like, oh my gosh, I got to deal with this. That laundry is only going to cause you problems if you don't do it, if you don't actually do the laundry, right? If it just keeps piling up, keeps getting stinkier, keeps living rent-free in your mind, right? So once you put that laundry into the washing machine, then you dry it or you hang it out on the drying line for it to soak in the sunlight and get dry, and then you fold it, put it back away. That's processing negative energy. That's processing negative thoughts, negative feelings. It's processing trauma. Again, not a therapist. But this stuff does need to be processed. We can't just pretend that stinky pile of laundry is not sitting there, because it's just going to keep stinking, keep making you not feel great. So there are many ways to avoid and process negative emotions. There are many ways to avoid emotionally and spiritually bypassing those emotions. But one easy way that I like to do is called conscious complaining. So this is a tool I learned from Carla McLaren, and she's the author of The Language of Emotions, which is a fantastic book. You should definitely check it out. Carla McLaren, The Language of Emotions. And Carla McLaren learned this strategy from Barbara Sher from her book Wishcraft. That's Wishcraft, 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 how to get what you really want. So that's where I'm pulling this wonderful tool from. So this is going to sound a little bit familiar to you if you've already done my conscious complaining training, but it 100% bears repeating, and I'm going to keep talking about it all the time because it's a great tool. So conscious complaining means setting up an intentional system to release your negative thoughts and emotions, so you're not splattering your negativity and frustration all over other people or yourself when you're trying to be creative or productive. So here's exactly what conscious complaining might look like. Truly, you can do conscious complaining any way you want. I mean, it's called conscious complaining because all that it means is complaining mindfully, complaining in a way that you're aware that you're complaining and you're doing it on purpose. You're not just complaining mindlessly, you're complaining on purpose. So here's one way you can do it. Step 1, choose a 5 to 20 minute window, whatever you need, whatever you have time for, 5 to 20 minute window that's unhurried and spacious where you can be alone. Maybe this is right after work or while you're showering, or again, if you're doing this as a method to shift your energy before writing, do it before writing. And just be sure to set a timer so you don't just go crazy with this and lose all your time. So Barbara Sher and Carla McLaren recommend choosing a complaining partner, as in an actual person that you can complain to. However, I tend to, unless you are very practiced at this tool, I would say don't do this just yet, because I feel that we're more open and we're going to be more honest if we're doing this alone, right? Because also, when you have a partner there, you are going to hold yourself back because you don't want to none of us really want to splatter all of our negative energy all over a friend or a partner. Then you're just going to feel guilty, right? Unless you've really been able to manage your mind and really develop a relationship with this person that feels safe and they could hold space for you for that. I personally think start doing this alone, and then as you get better at it, maybe practice it with a therapist or a coach or somebody that you feel really safe around and who can hold this space. So that's my rant on that. But you can also pretend that your partner is the ocean or a tree or a lake or your pillow or your dog, although, we may feel guilty there too, spilling our negative energy onto our dogs, or a stuffed animal, something like that, or the birds. All right, now that you're set up for that, spend 5 minutes making a list of all the things that are hard, frustrating, overwhelming, or pissing you off in that moment. So really, this is your time just to let it out. So open up your journal and get all of the shit out, right? This is literally like a colonic. Get it all out. Doesn't matter if it sounds petty. Like the pettier, the better, right? Be petty. Be a bitch. Be complaining. This is what this is for. Truly go no holds barred on your excuses, your grievances. Even, again, if it sounds childish, petty, immature, bitchy, doesn't matter. You're not selfish or silly or petty. These feelings are there for a reason. Remember, we got to get them out. It's the dirty laundry. This is your time to air the dirty laundry, right? We're washing it. All right. So once you've really let that all out on paper, and again, you have full, you can absolutely burn that paper. You can crumple it up, rip it up, flush it down the toilet, whatever you want to do. You can absolutely release it in that way. And then once you've done that, or you can do that later, but once you've gotten it all out on paper, I want you to get into something physical. So yell, scream, kick, punch, dance, whine, and cry about all the things you wrote down on that paper, right? Really get physical. Even if you need to like shake it out, shake your hands, shake your arms, shake your legs. Like you can dance, you can like cue up some, like rap music or punk rock music, hard rock, metal, whatever. Like what about that amazing scene from Stranger Things where Eddie rocks out to Metallica in the Upside Down? Like you can put that scene on and totally just do some headbanging. Just be careful, maybe stretch first because I've done that and I've hurt myself. So stretch first before you do that, but get physical, let it all out. Okay, so once you've done both of those things, once you've written it all down on paper, once you've gotten physical to release all of that stuff, take a deep, deep breath, the biggest breath you've taken all day. Then give yourself a big hug and say, thank you. I hear you. I love you. I will keep you safe. Right? We need to say that to ourselves. Thank you. I hear you. I love you. I will keep you safe. Take a deep breath in and then let it all go. And, later on, maybe you take a shower, you can imagine all of those complaints that you wrote down just washing down the drain. Just imagine them washing down the drain, just getting out of there. And remember, conscious complaining is a bit like an emotional colonic. We want to release, declutter, process, and cleanse this crap we're holding on to that's pissing us off. And once we've done that, we can really enter into the juicy feast that is gratitude. And gratitude is what is going to shift us into that pre-Disney excited day before Christmas energy, right? The juicy feast that is gratitude. All right, so part 2 of this exercise is, you guessed it, gratitude. So gratitude has definitely been challenging for me in the past, mainly because, again, I would learn about it and whatever gratitude tools I was using, it wasn't processing the yucky stuff first. And that's, I think, where the issues come in. It's like, I don't want to be I don't want to be grateful about something when I'm pissed off about this other thing, when this other thing that is real and true and causing me discomfort is here, So it used to piss me off because I wanted to complain rather than focus on the blessings and privileges in my life. That's why we do conscious complaining first. So if you're like me back in the day, if you're still feeling resistant to gratitude and gratitude hasn't felt good to you in the past, make sure you do enough conscious complaining just to get it all out. You're not going to get everything out, but do it enough to where you're like, okay, I can enter into the gratitude exercise with a little bit of a curious and open mind. You don't have to be 100% there, but if you can get 80% there, open to the gratitude exercise, that's great. Okay, so just get 80% there. All right, so let's get into the exercise. So for me, I really like to practice gratitude in my journal with a pen or a pencil. I like to use a pencil. Some people really swear by pen. Whatever it is for you, there is something very true about writing by hand. It's a different experience from typing as far as connecting to the brain and to your creativity. So I do recommend doing this by hand if you are able. So I typically set a timer for about 10 minutes. And I start making a list of, my first part of this, I don't know, can you all hear Nala cranking in the background? I don't know why she's cranking, but I think she needs to go for a walk. So that's what we're doing after this. Anyway, back to gratitude. All right, I set a timer for 10 minutes and I start making a list of all the little inconsequential things I'm grateful for. So sometimes if I'm really feeling a little resistance to gratitude, I start with the things that I can see in front of me that make my life a little bit easier, right? So first thing I see are my desk lamps. My desk lamps are really helpful for my eyes. They brighten up a lot of things so that my eyes aren't straining. So I'm definitely grateful for that. I'm so grateful for my pencil collection. I love mechanical pencils, so I usually ask for them for Christmas, so I'm always restocked. My Hydro Flask water bottle. I have been a fan of Hydro Flask since 2014. I got my first Hydro Flask in a sporting goods store in Portland, Oregon, and I've never looked back. It keeps my water so cold and delicious, and I'm obsessed. My journal. What a beautiful thing that I can write my thoughts down on paper whenever I want, and my journal feels so good in my hands. I'm very careful about how I choose my journals. My phone, my iPhone. I have a computer in the palm of my hand wherever I go. My Bluetooth speaker is right in front of me. I can listen to things. My eyeglass wipes. So I buy these little reusable glasses wipes because my glasses just get dirty in a couple hours. They have fingerprints or I don't know, mascara or makeup on them. So I have these eyeglass wipes that keep my eyeglasses clean. I love them. They're so soft. It gives me so much joy to clean my glasses and then have clear vision. Soft tissues in front of me that I can blow my nose when I have a stuffy nose. These are just whatever is in front of you. And even if you don't have things like an iPhone or a Bluetooth speaker or these things that I'm privileged to have, what is in front of you? Even if there's nothing, can you be grateful for the breath in your lungs? Can you be grateful for your hands, your ability to listen to this podcast? You're listening to this podcast on some form of technology. Can you be grateful for that? All right. So once I've listed all the little things that are in front of me that are making my life a little bit 1% easier or 10% easier, I start thinking about the bigger things that I'm grateful for. So the first thing that comes to mind is my laptop. I'm so grateful for my laptop. My living is made on my laptop, right? I connect to the world on my laptop. What a blessing. My car, I'm so grateful for my car. It's getting to be really old now. I'm going to have to upgrade it soon, but the adventures I've had in my car. What a miracle that I can get in my car. I could literally get in my car right now and drive to Florida if I wanted to. And if I, had truly, if I wanted to, I could do that right now. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm not outside in the elements having to go to sleep tonight without a roof over my head. I have a comfy bed with a really wonderful comforter that I intentionally picked out. I have my dog Nala. I'm so grateful for Nala. She has brought me so much love and joy and has been with me during some of the hardest times of my life, the emotionally hardest times, the circumstantially hardest times. She's been with me in my car traveling across the country. So grateful for Nala. She brings me so much love and joy. My love and my loving family, my niece and nephew, my adorable niece and nephew. Like they are, and my sisters, my mom and dad, I'm so grateful for them. My friends, and when I'm doing this exercise, I list them out by name. So I list, all my beautiful friends that I love, my friend Crystal, my friend Barbara, my friend Melissa, all of my lovely friends that I absolutely love and I'm so grateful for. Living in California under the beautiful sunshine and this wonderful climate, having running water in my house, being able to take a shower every day. My business, this business of writing coaching that lets me connect with and support incredible creative writers without ever having to leave my bedroom. Like I can literally run a business from my desk in my room. And then I have got so much more on my list. I don't want to keep just rambling off, but then I might start to get a little more esoteric, a little more spiritual. I'm grateful for my brain that constantly brings me new ideas and is able to communicate them with others. What a beautiful thing that I have a human brain and that I was born as a human and not a squirrel. Maybe that would be fun to be a squirrel, but squirrels aren't writing novels and creating learning programs and connecting with people on the internet and socializing in real life, right? So I'm grateful I have a human brain. I'm grateful that I am able and physically healthy enough to take long walks with Nala and that I have access to hikes where I can hike mostly safely, right? I appreciate that I can go walk down to the beach and I can swim in the water. I'm grateful that I live in the 21st century in a country where I have way more rights, privileges, and a higher quality of life than my ancestors even 100 years ago. So those are just a few of the things that I wrote down on my gratitude list just today. And if you don't have a lot of those things, look around at the things that you do have again. And if you're feeling a little bit of comparisonitis, which is 100% normal and can come up when other people share what they're grateful for, go back to consciously complaining and complain and do some, bitch and moan a little bit that you want these things or you want certain things and you don't have them. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to go back to step 1. Then go into step 2, into the gratitude, and think of the things that you have, the privileges and the blessings and the abundance that you have so that both can exist in your mind. Okay, so for me, when I'm on part 2 and I'm listing all these beautiful things that I'm grateful for, sometimes I get into such a good feeling energy that I just keep going. I just keep listing things, even random things like this rubber band that I have in my hand that I'm playing with, or the birds outside my window, the socks that I'm wearing, my morning tea, all of these things. Even though they feel so random, I'm like, what a miracle to have hot tea in the morning. And I'll also say, I only recommend listing things that you're actually grateful for, or at least maybe you're 70% grateful for, right? If you're not grateful for family or you're not feeling in a grateful mood for your friends right now, don't put them on your list. That's okay. You're not a bad person. Again, you can go back to step 1 anytime you need to let some of that stuff out. However, if you're 70% grateful for something, go ahead and put that on the list. For example, my computer and my car are both getting pretty old at this point, and they are to the point where I'm going to need an upgrade within the next few years because they will literally just die. Or my computer, for example, is starting to get to the point where it can't handle the new softwares that are coming out. It can't handle Zoom or different things that I'm going to need to function on my computer. So I'm eventually going to have to upgrade. However, both of those things, my computer and my car, they're like my favorite things that I own because they allow me so much freedom and so much space in the world. To me, it's a miracle that I can jump on Zoom on my laptop or open Google Docs on my laptop and create something for people that are across the world, right? That somebody in Australia can listen to or benefit from. And again, my car, like I can hop in my car right now and drive to Santa Barbara. I can drive to Oregon. I can drive to Florida. Like that's a miracle. Again, as a reminder, a very, very important reminder, gratitude is not here to paper over your negative thoughts. We're not like looking at a moldy wall and trying to paper it over with pretty wallpaper. We're not meant to paper over negative thoughts, feelings, and we're certainly not about to gaslight you into thinking that your challenging circumstances aren't real. When something is hard, it's hard. When somebody breaks up with you or you break up with somebody and your heart is in 10,000 pieces, gratitude is not meant to diminish that. Gratitude is meant to open you up a little bit more so that you can hold both things at once, right? It's meant to bring perspective and spaciousness into your life. It's meant to show you that yes, this thing is hard right now and this feeling is real. Your heart, you just broke up with a partner who you were with for 5 years. It feels shitty. Your heart is in 10,000 pieces. And you are big and expansive enough to hold space for the fact that you have a wonderful Hydro Flask water bottle that's full of cool water that when you're thirsty, you can sip out of and it feels good. And you have a mug full of yummy, delicious hot tea that brings you joy and gratitude. So that's for me. Like those are two things that like I can find joy and gratitude in, even if my circumstances are really tough, right? All right, so sometimes doing this both conscious complaining and gratitude practice, it cracks us open a little bit. Again, it expands our capacity to hold both the challenging stuff and the exciting, joyful, wonderful stuff at the same time. And when we can do that, we get a little bit closer, we inch a little bit closer to that inspired pre-Disney energy, which is a great energy where we can write from. So even if you can just access just 10% of that feeling, of that excited, inspired, joyful feeling, then you can sit down to your computer, your typewriter, or your journal, and you can actually show up for your committed writing time, for your writing appointment that you pre-booked for yourself. So my friend, my lovely creative writer, I hope this episode has brought you joy. And from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful for you. You are on my gratitude list, truly and completely. You and all the creative writers in my community are one of the most energizing things on my gratitude list. Can you hear in my voice for this episode how excited I was to share it with you? That's because you light me up so much and you energize me to create. So just thinking about all of you and your story ideas, it gets me so excited. It puts me right into that Disney castle energy. So thank you so much for sharing your time and attention with me. I know you have a lot of options when it comes to listening to podcast content, YouTube content, all the things. So thank you for sharing your time with me. And if you are not in the US, I'm wishing you such a beautiful and joyful holiday season as we move into December. And if you are in the US, I'm sending you a big happy Thanksgiving to you and your loved ones. I hope you enjoy an abundant feast that fills you with joy this Thursday. All right, I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening. For more episodes and letters of encouragement like this one, please subscribe at writeforjoy.co/subscribe. Thank you so much for listening and happy writing.